Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the City Council special meeting and work session for Tuesday, December 17th, called meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, first on the agenda, we'll have public comment. If you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand. When you come to the podium, please state your name and mailing address. Keep it under 3 minutes and try to be kind and respectful. Who would like? Go ahead. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Workman. My address is P.O. Box 433 in Cannon Beach, Oregon. And what I wanted to talk about tonight is the house system, the tsunami emergency alert system that we have in the community. And I was really shocked to find out just a few days ago that that system has not been functioning at all since the malfunction that occurred on June 5th of this summer. My neighbor was sharing some information with me that he had spoken with the emergency manager, and my understanding is that that system is completely non-functional. It's outdated. They can't repair it, and that a new system, a new sophisticated system is needed. I think that's great, but also it's been 6 months without having this emergency system. And I know that we have alternatives such as Nixle and Everbridge and that, but a lot of people rely on that siren to alert them in case of emergency, such as a tsunami. We've had some seismic activity, as we know. Last week, there was some issues in California, Southern Oregon. And I think that that heightens the critical nature of this, that, you know, we need to have this in place. I would say that most, if not all, maybe not all, of the community here in Cannon Beach is unaware that that system is not functioning. If there was an emergency, if we had visitors, you know, staying in the hotels, whatnot, they're down on the beach, there's no siren. And even visitors would not be signed up on the Nixle or Everbridge or whatever those other alternatives are. My understanding too is that, you know, we need a funding source for this, and that a grant is in process, I think, of being prepared or presented. My concern about that is that grants take a long time to be reviewed and approved and put into place. And this is really critical. I think that this needs to be addressed now. And in addition to that, I also believe that everyone in the community needs to be notified. I personally think that a letter needs to go out from the city to everyone who lives in Cannon Beach, owns property in Cannon Beach, has a business, and the hotels need to be told that this system is not functioning. We've been used to hearing the siren for the testing and to be aware that, you know, there might be an emergency and there's nothing there and they don't even know. I've spoken to several people in the community and they were shocked to find out that this was not repaired and can't be. So I think that was most of what I wanted to say. I just really believe that this needs to be taken care of right now. I know that the city has a lot of issues to address, like the NACOS project and housing and parking and whatnot. But I think this should be top of the list. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next. Great.
Good evening.
You don't have to.
Greg Swedenborg, P.O. Box 3, Cannon Beach, 97110. Kind of a knee-jerk reaction because I saw an email and I thought it was an agenda topic tonight, so I pushed down here, realizing that it was not. But I was here at the meeting last week when with Related Northwest presented the solution for the affordable housing in Seaside and requesting $500,000. And I guess I'll just say my piece now since I got all in a hub about it. A lot of money, and what we know of the project and we've heard and kind of followed it in Seaside a little bit, there's some questions that I would hope that the council and the city would ask in terms of the benefit and the return on investment of $500,000 to a project that's relatively in Seaside. And I sent you an email because I didn't know if I'd be able to make it tonight. I don't know if you've been able to see it. It was just an hour ago, but what happens if people move to Seaside and then are no longer members of Cannon Beach community and working here? And there, just a lot of unknowns for that size of investment. And while I haven't been involved I've been involved in some committees. I was never involved in the Affordable Housing Committee, and I don't know if it's actually still active. But there are many solutions out there that are not providing civic funds to just here build this place and we'll get preferential treatment for an apartment or two or three. And a couple of them that I highlighted are in place from Nantucket to the southeast coastal areas in Florida and across the Gulf, Summit County, Colorado, through Utah, through Tahoe, a lot of resort destination type communities. And a lot of them come from a company that basically creates incentive programs for people with long-term residents that are against vacancy type taxes and things like that, to get incentives to turn their short-term rentals into long-term rentals for anywhere from 5 to 12 plus months, depending on the use. So the people that don't like to come here in the summer, but love to come here in the fall, can rent their house for 5, 6, 7 months, and they create and coordinate housing opportunities for people. According to their website, they've housed over 3,000 new people, 3,000 new homes in a couple of years. And these are in cities just like ours, maybe a little bigger, maybe a little smaller in some cases. So my email explained all of that. The program that it was. Lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. Lease to locals. And then there's another one which is called Rooted Renters Program, which is an incentivized program where that same $500,000 could be used to incentivize people who own property in Cannon Beach to open that up to long-term rentals, as opposed to just giving it to, in this case, Seaside for a couple of people. That program, which is in a pilot program in Truckee, California right now, that's called Rooted Renters Program. And it basically incentivizes people, because if you're going to make X amount of dollars more on a short-term rental, but the long-term rental will get you what you need, people will switch from one to the other as long as they can have use of their home when it meets their needs. So things to consider. I hope that when the time comes, the council considers some of these things and ideas outside of just blank funding development. Not our community, but the county community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
What? Back row. Well, yeah, hello.
Hi, I'm Lolly Alsop, PO Box 8, Cannon Beach. I wanted to go right after Greg because those are awesome ideas and programs. Obviously, I'm here to talk about housing. I understand that there's a lot to take in with this, but every time that I hear us trying to push people that are working in this community, have been working in this community, would love to continue to live in this community and have been pushed out. Every time I hear it said that they need to go to Seaside or there's no room to build or anything, what I hear is there's no room for us. And that's so disheartening. My childhood home on Van Buren, when my parents came here, they were renting that house. We ended up moving for sure, but after we moved out of that house, I watched multiple young people that were working in the service industry in this community for years pop in and out of that house because it was a long-term rental. Now, these people, they're married, they have businesses in town, they have children they're trying to raise in this town. If that option wasn't available for them then, they probably wouldn't be here still and have these opportunities. My parents each own their own business here. I own my own business here. I want to be here and I want to make sure that, you know, there's all of the staff at the Christmas party that I'm supposed to be at right now at the smokehouse and Bill's. Most of them live in Seaside because there's just no space for them here. And that's what we keep hearing. And it's just sad. And we have so many vacant homes that, yeah, I understand. Creating a vacancy tax seems like a punishment to people for sure. But incentivizing them to switch from short-term Airbnb type situation to a long-term rental is, if that's the best course of action, I think that would be wonderful, wonderful. I implore you to look to different decisions than just going to Seaside. What we've seen in the last number of years when there's been flooding on the road or an ice storm or whatever, everything ends up being closed in Cannon Beach because no people can't get here, because majority of the people actually do live in Seaside to work here. So, I mean, we've got to come up with something, please. I implore you to look to any other option besides just pushing us away. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
So my name is Todd Lawson, 22 John Street, Seattle, member of the Clatsop Nehalem tribe. Just wanted to come and listen tonight. That's what I'm here to do on the Nakoos project. And wanted to thank everyone for all the efforts. And really looking forward to starting again with some positive energy and come up with a solution.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Next.
I printed up a little thing, but my printer stopped working. I have one for everyone. Can I just? Yeah, and I can make copies. Okay, it's stupid. Okay, I am Michelle Valagura, PO Box 719. When I started fighting for attainable housing, I believed my own situation to be secure. My apartment has been a full-time rental since its construction. Come to find out, I was fighting for myself due to a variety of factors. My street is probably one of the only streets in town that is completely occupied year-round. Besides one second homeowner, who also happens to be heavily involved in volunteering in this community, I believe that my soon-to-be former street is alive due to the high occupancy. As a 52-year-old woman, business owner, and artist, I found myself scrambling to stay connected to the community I love. I've built and and the people have embraced me. Luckily, I found a very small cottage that I'm absolutely thrilled about. Under 400 square foot garage conversion with no washer and dryer. For the first time in my 52 years, I'll be going to a laundromat, and I'm beyond thankful. When I start to scream in my soul and feel crushed by how hard day-to-day life seems, I never stay there for very long. Yes, the jaw-dropping beauty is the first thing that can snap me back to the reality of how incredibly lucky I am I landed in this wackadoodle town. But it's the people that make me want to thrive. In a little over 5 years, I've become deeply connected to my community, friends, and other business owners and artists, neighbors, and so on. I find myself disagreeing with Lisa often, but being with town pride when I see her exhibiting her jewelry in Gallery Astoria. That's us, I say. I say to myself, and I think we all feel it. I want to give Gary a wedgie sometimes, but always happy to see him and Gracie and hope to absorb some of his vast knowledge of red wine. I have a familiarity and a deep affection for each and every one of the cast of characters in this little town. When I moved here, knowing no one, I had to hire a couple kids from Seaside to help me unload my moving van. 5 years later, all I have to say is I've never known so many people with trucks. As corny as it is, this town is my home. You all are my family. Warts and all, I love you. Needless to say, you'll have to drag me out of here kicking and screaming. Why do I feel so threatened? I'll be booted out of a town I love? Why is a good question. We can change this. You have the power. I have the power. We all have the power. A group of 3 local restaurant workers lost their housing in Seaside a few months back. They all fought tooth and nail to move into a town they spend most of their waking hours. A community they feel a part of. Why do they fight so hard, you may ask? It's a 12-minute drive. It's the exact same ocean. It has amenities and a beautiful beach. Yet all 3 of them are back in this tiny town that seems to only want them here to serve. After the last meeting, Gary said to me, it seems like I'm more concerned with votes than finding housing. Well, you're correct. A vote equals your voice and a voice equals your power to make decisions over your own fate. I know with the national election, some of us feel gobsmacked. Complete loss of power, women worried about reproductive rights, transgender people fearing for their lives, extreme policies that include mass detention of migrants and mass deportation of millions of people, which would tear apart families with deep roots in the US. The list goes on and on. So when I say I'm more concerned over a vote, I say a resounding absolutely. A vote is our voice. I believe that these 3 restaurant workers should have an equal voice to every property owner in town. I believe this is the basis of democracy. This diversity hopefully keeps a balance to policies and not have 1% simply making the power of decisions. I ask you to ponder why rent can double legally in a matter of 7 years. 10% is the yearly increase is the legal maximum many landlords take complete advantage of. Yet all we seem to be concerned about is property taxes that are typically around 3% a year. Everyone in earshot should ask themselves why. We need to be more creative. We need to be more diligently proactive about creating space for those of us who participate in the community on a daily basis. We need to protect our most important resource, people, not ship them to the next town because it's more convenient. The quick search, I found 2 vacant lots for sale. We could possibly buy these lots. Build cottage clusters, raise money. Raise money how? Well, with some rough math, if we implement like just a simple $1,000 a year fee to the 1,183 non-primary residences, we can fund this idea and others such as incentivizing what seem to be all but abandoned homes to rent full-time. Please do not use our affordable housing fund for a project to our beloved neighbors to the north. How can we look at people on a daily basis who we see perform at the Coaster Theater or have cut our hair or play at Bill's every Thursday or work for 8Trap and say, not in my backyard. Seaside will take you. That's your home. I love Seaside. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I understand how much work this is and that you're all trying your very best. Once again, I'd like to adopt my mantra. You can't have change without change. Be the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, is there? Jen?
And Siebert Warmond and my husband Wes Warmond, PO Box 778, Cannon Beach. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, thank you all very much for your dedicated service to our Cannon Beach community. Tonight, we ask you to please be as open as possible during your discussion regarding NACUS and the Cannon Beach Elementary School. One heartfelt suggestion we have is for the new council to meet in the new year with Clatsop-Nehalem tribal members and interested Cannon Beach community members at the same time to help us move forward with each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Anyone else in the audience? Okay, if there's anyone on Zoom that would like to speak, please raise your hand. Okay, one last chance for the audience. And one last chance for anyone on Zoom. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is Resolution 2422 for the election, and that's Jennifer.
Okay, the final official canvass of votes from the Clatsop County Clerk has been received by the city elections officer. The results of the canvass is subject of this resolution. The canvass of votes tallies the votes of the election of the 2 at-large council positions. So what you have is a resolution that essentially canvasses the votes. It accepts the votes, which is a requirement of our charter. So we have resolution 2422 for your approval.
Any questions?
I'll move to adopt resolution 2422 for the purpose of accepting the final official canvass of votes of the November 5, 2024 general election.
A second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Jen. Okay, our action item is City Hall Police Station Project Construction Manager, General Contractor Selection Recommendations and Contract Approval. Bruce?
Initially, it was recommended that the city council adopt the construction manager / general contractor or CMGC construction delivery system for the construction of the city hall and police stations. Since that time, the city has parted ways with the CMGC that was initially selected, and the city is again at a decision point regarding a delivery system for the projects. For the city to employ a delivery system other than hard bid required a resolution calling for the alternative construction delivery system. In this case, the recommendation for that alternative delivery system was the modified construction manager general contractor method. The appropriate resolution was adopted at the October 8th meeting. Based on that resolution, a selection committee was assembled that included Les Sinclair, Karen Labonte, Mike Benefield, Rusty Barrett, Tim Collier, and Bruce St. Dennis to make a recommendation to the council regarding the selection of the new CMGC. The city received 8 proposals from interested firms. The written proposals were evaluated by each of the committee members. It was decided that 5 firms would be interviewed. The top ranked firm was selected based on the scoring criteria in the RFP. We notified that firm of our intent to commence negotiations. The other firms were thanked for their interest and notified they were not the top ranked firm. The firms that were not selected were informed they had 7 days from the issuance of the notice of intent to appeal the decision of the committee. The closing date of the appeal period was December 9th, 2024, and there were no appeals received. What the city is seeking is a slightly different take on the CMGC model. Specifically, selected CMGC would perform 2 major functions. Phase 1, the projects have reached an advanced degree of design, so the estimating that would take place during the design process has been completed. Instead, step 1 would be for the selected CMGC to review the plans and do a constructability analysis. In other words, they would certify that the design work completed so far is capable of clearly delineating structures that are buildable and that their firm is capable of building the structures. Phase 2, the next step would be to provide the city with a guaranteed maximum price, or GMP. The GMP is the price that the project will cost unless there are changes made necessary by deficient plans or a significant modification to the plans made by the project owner. GMP would also include contingencies in the project budget to accommodate those eventualities. Once the bidding process is complete and the GMP is accepted by the owner, the CMGC starts to manage the bid process and procurement for long lead time items. Bidding is an open book process with the city and CETA, our architects, having access to all the information included in the bid tabs. That includes the public. The CMGC will have the primary role in deciding who receives the subcontracts, but must provide an explanation if the lowest price bid is not accepted. They may also bid against other subs to self-perform or have their employees do the work. The decision about whether to accept the self-perform bid is at the discretion of the city. The RFP for the CMGC and the contract documents was prepared by staff in conjunction with the Office of the City Attorney. The selection process was guided by those documents and state law. Attached to this staff report is a proposed contract between the city and PNC Construction. Staff were assisted in the negotiation process by Mac Mahoney from Beery, Elsner, and Hammond. The recommendation is that that the selection committee's recommendation to select PNC Construction to serve as the CMGC for the Cannon Beach City Hall and Police Station project be accepted. And also that the negotiated contract between the city and PNC Construction would be approved by council. There are suggested motions in your agenda materials. Are there any questions I can answer?
This company has been thoroughly vetted, what kind of report did you get from the vetting?
Good reports at every point.
And everybody is paid
Yes,
what they're supposed to be paid and on time?
yes.
Everything.
And it's all been, it's been looked at by an attorney familiar with construction contracts. So,
Yes, yes.
Max on there too. He's
Yeah, I think he's on the line if you have.
Okay.
He's a new addition to Barry Elsner and Hammond.
Oh,
Were there specific things about PNC Construction that you felt made them most qualified for this?
Yes, first, over 90% of their work is done at CMGC. Another thing that differentiated them is that we have two projects. And we were pleased to see that they intended to have a superintendent dedicated to each one of the projects rather than a superintendent with foreman. So they gave us a larger team than what others were providing. And their references were excellent. And they, again, going back to their team, they have like a project engineer that is handling a lot of the details, where some of the firms had a project engineer that was available to the superintendents, but this is a dedicated person.
and they're a Portland firm?
Yes,
I noticed,
we have worked with CETA before.
yes, they have.
Yeah.
So there's something else I should have mentioned, Gary.
and CETA's had good experience with them.
And they've done projects on the coast.
Yes.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one about the contract. Is it the time to bring that up?
Yep.
Bruce, there was a space in the contract. I'm trying to find it at the moment, but it asking about whether we wanted to retain an engineering company, and we've left it.
We have engineers on the staff at CETA. And that's structural, and then they've also partnered with a civil engineer. So we do have, engineers on our team.
That's what I figured. I just was wondering if that was intentionally done in the contract.
No, the contract, it's an interesting contract. There's, what you're looking at is CMGC. And then there's also a companion contract for architects.
Yes.
And it all meshes together. And so they give you all of these options too, which you can say, yes, we want to hire an engineer. And that's where we would talk to the CMGC about our engineer. We felt that we had the engineering support we needed.
Okay.
We talked at all about a time frame for notably phase one.
Yes. We expect to be with another part that impressed us with PNC is that they had already read the contracts. One of the steps in this process is they have to tell us whether or not they agree with any aspects of the contract. And they said, we're done with that step. We're ready to sign the contract. And so they really had done, their homework. And as a result of that, we're anticipating that we may be breaking ground in March.
Of 2025, but to be clear.
Yes, yes. The way projects go, I should have been more clear.
And any idea about when they would provide us with a guaranteed maximum price?
It would be before that time.
I hope so.
Yes. The guaranteed maximum price, what it is that they go out to bid and they bid out to subcontractors. And so they know who's going to be doing the glass work or the concrete work or whoever. They've got that. They have a contract with that firm. And it's a public process. So the city also sees, and the architects also see what the bids were from each one of these parties. And then they decide who they want to use, and that's with our concurrence. And then they're able to accumulate what the prices are, what all the bids were, and then say, this is the most that it should cost, because they've already done their bidding. There are exceptions. If there's changes made by the owner. However, in the AIA contract, it says that if they made a mistake or one of their bidders made a mistake, it's on them. It's not that the city pays that makes that up. So that's where the guaranteed maximum price comes from. And we know that when we start the construction process.
Is there any indication at all, or has there been that it's going to be any more or any less than the guaranteed maximum price that we got from the previous contractor? I don't know if it's too early to know that or not, but.
We didn't get a guaranteed maximum price from the last contractor, but we did get a administrative cost, and that's, 8%. And I believe that back, I don't know, however long ago it was, maybe a year and a half, that their administrative cost, which is what they would make or what they charge over the guaranteed maximum price, was about 3.1, 3.2%. And we negotiated with PNC to 2.4%. There's a lot of other factors can go into that, but the amount that the contractor makes and function of time, apparently.
Any other questions? Concerns? Would anybody like to make one of the two motions?
I will move to approve PNC Construction as the CMGC firm determined to be the most qualified by the selection committee for the City Hall Police Station projects.
A second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jen.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr.
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
I'm going to keep going.
Sure.
Okay. I will now move to approve the recommended contract between the city and PNC Construction for the Cannon Beach City Hall Police Station project in a form substantially similar to attachment A.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jen.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the special meeting and open the work session. And the first item on the agenda is the proposed short-term rental relocation discussion. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. How is everybody doing? As you guys remember, we were considering relocating the short-term rentals from the zoning section, section 17 in the municipal code to the business section, section 5. As part of that, it's a zoning ordinance amendment. So there were hearings before the Plan Commission. During that hearings process, Attorney Dean Alterman, on behalf of a couple of the short-term management companies, raised a couple of concerns about the relocation proposal. And after reviewing Attorney Alterman's comments and information, Bill Kabaisman, the city attorney, had indicated that the city's comprehensive plan specifically references short-term rentals and how they're to be regulated. And because the STR regulations implement the provisions in the comp plan, it will always be a land use decision. So what that means is, since they're a land use decision, no matter what section they're in, whether they're in 17 or they're in 5, it's going to, any type of proposal to amend the ordinance requires notification to the Department of Land Conservation and Development, which is that PAPA notice that we've talked about, the post-acknowledgement plan amendment process. So that's a notice process that goes to DLCD, and then there's hearings before the Plan Commission as well as council to adopt those changes. At the November meeting, the Plan Commission reviewed the proposed amendment and decided to recommend that the council deny the proposed STR relocation. And so the next step is for the council to hold a public hearing to consider the relocation. But before that happened, staff just wanted to bring it to council to have a discussion as to, we can still bring that to you, and the Plan Commission is just strictly a recommendation to council. Council can agree with that recommendation, or council can approve it and relocate it. However, that being said, I think the biggest thing that we're trying to stress is we are trying to put it in 5 because it didn't require the POP. It wasn't a land use decision. We found out that it is, and it's going to require the same notice as it is in 5 as it does in 17. So it gains us, it doesn't gain us what we thought we were trying to accomplish. So it hasn't been an issue in zoning. Plan Commission heard the options that were available. They would like to see it remain in zoning. So staff was at tonight's meeting, staff was recommending that we withdraw the application. We didn't see that it makes a difference one way or the other if it's 5 or 17. So what we're asking of council is, there's still a recommendation that's out there. So the two options are, we continue to the hearings process, which would be coming to you in probably a month or so, or we withdraw the application and it just remains as is.
Well, I think the whole impetus for this whole thing was through the housing committee led by Marcy, that it would bring us flexibility in making changes to the STR code, ordinance, and give us the ability to shift things around if we thought it was necessary, for example, to help create more housing in the community. If it doesn't make any difference to the flexibility, or if it will make no difference at all, then I just don't see any reason to do it.
I agree with you.
But I still would like to see a POPA notice be issued, et cetera, for us to do something about the STR ordinance, no matter where it is.
Yeah. So really at this point in time, with regards to the short-term rentals, all we were doing was relocating the ordinance as written. No changes, nothing. So at this point in time, there's nothing other than changing it from zoning to 5. As part of the code audit process, that still could happen, or the code audit could happen and STRs could be looked at in the future, whether it's part of that process or not. But regardless, they're a land use decision, and as such, they would require that notice and would require the hearings before both, like you're seeing all the other zoning ordinance amendments that have previously come to you.
I guess my only fear is that it's going to drop off the radar. You know, I don't want to see that happen.
Right. I don't
I-
think that's gonna happen.
Okay.
Personally, I think there's a lot of interest in it and there's a lot of discussion. And so we can just kind of continue to keep track. And, I think some of it was with some of the housing code potential audits that amendments that the council could see in a little while. Just wanted to make sure that those changes weren't increasing the ability for additional options for short-term rentals, I think was the biggest concern.
Okay, and all those are going to require a PAPA notice.
That's correct.
So
nothing's happening.
this could
That's correct.
right into that.
That's right. So really what it would be is we would withdraw this and any type of amendments would just continue through that code audit process and would have to follow through the same process anyways. So my suggestion, again, council, obviously can do with this what they wish, but I would think it's worthwhile withdrawing and then doing it rest of the as we're going through the audit.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah.
I concur. I mean, I know we can't make
We can't make a
decision
motion, but
tonight, but I think it makes sense to me.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, withdraw the amendment.
So then what would happen is we'll just withdraw it, the application goes away, and then as we continue moving through the zoning code audit, we'll continue to have discussions.
Poof.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
okay. Nice.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, next we have the Elk Creek Terrace utility discussion.
Tim Collier, our finance director, addressed that.
Good evening.
And I believe Mr. Donnelly is on. I just promoted him. He should pop on here in a second. Okay, so on the council, on the December 3rd council meeting, James Donnelly from Community Action Team spoke during public comment around the water cost of water with regards to the Elk Creek Terrace complex. We have increased the rates in August, and they have seen increased rates at that time. Public Works has been in contact with Mr. Donnelly with regards to both signing up for the Ion Water Program and have several other recommendations to help with their current water usage. But I will turn it over to Mr. Donnelly if he has anything additionally to add.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you, and good evening to everyone. Thanks for allowing me to speak to the council. I appreciate that. I guess just to add to the comments that were just made, I presented a spreadsheet that I put together outlining when different resolutions were put in place by the city, dating back to July 1st, 2021. There was another one that went into effect July 1st, 2022, July 1st, 2023, January 1st, 2024, August 1st, 2024. So we've seen multiple increases in the utility costs. And really what my analysis shows is I don't know that we're seeing significant jumps in usage. There are some anomalies in the usage, which we are addressing specifically. We've already addressed some of them, such as locking the hose bibs. And we had a leak detection service come out recently. And we are in the process of replacing toilet flappers, which tend to be really you'll find in multifamily housing, toilet flappers are actually a culprit for a lot of wasted water. It's kind of strange, such a small thing. So we are, the point of the matter is that we are implementing some mitigation efforts Yet we're also seeing just increases in the rates, which are really tough for us to absorb. One other mitigation method that I'll speak on, and then I'll close my comments, is that I've engaged a civil engineer to calculate the size of the necessary meter on site, which would get us to a reduced base load cost, which could potentially save us up to $10,000 in a year. So we're hoping that it'll sort of pay for itself. There is a fire hydrant on site, which would need a separate line feeding directly to that fire hydrant. And I think in my investigation, that's why there's a 6-inch meter out there. But my understanding of a base analysis is that the 6-inch meter is not necessary for feeding the actual units. And so we feel like we can probably get to a smaller meter size. So thanks again for allowing me to comment. Oh, I don't, am I supposed to call on you or are you supposed to call on me?
As long as somebody does.
I just did.
I have some just very basic questions, like, who are you? What is your exact position? What is the, how does this is for Elk Creek, is a little bit more information about Elk Creek in general, like, is it government subsidized, et cetera, because in my tenure here, in the 2 years I've been on the council, I've really not heard that much about Elk Creek. And I don't have any history other than going up there for classes.
I apologize. I should have done that properly as introducing myself. I am the Director of Community Investment with Community Action Team. We're out of St. Helens, but we are the property owners there of Elk Creek Terrace. It's a 36-unit apartment complex with 1 unit dedicated to the on-site manager. It is designated as affordable housing, but as far as my understanding of it, there are no current covenants held on it because the financing was different when it was originally constructed in 1994. So, and any of those covenants would have expired by now. So, yeah, I hope that gives you some good background. Are there any other background questions that you might have?
Yeah, are you a nonprofit, a for-profit?
Sorry, yeah, Community Action Team is a community action organization. We are a nonprofit, and we execute the property there as such.
So you're the owners of the property.
We are the owners, yes.
So it's privately owned or nonprofit owned?
It's nonprofit owned, yes, ma'am.
Is there any kind of controls on what the rent, how much the rent can be? Or is there, and you said the covenants have expired, so that would mean that theoretically you could charge anything you wanted for an apartment or not?
I need to double check on that. I apologize. I'm fairly new at CAT. And so I'm really trying to educate myself quickly. But I can follow up on that question on if there are other covenants in place to retain the rents at an affordable rate.
Now that, I really want the answer to that. I mean, that's really important to me to know, personally, for me to know that.
Do the tenants pay their own water bills or does?
They do
your
not.
organization? Okay.
They do not, no.
Do the tenants have to meet a certain income level in order to live there?
Well, that would be associated with any kind of covenants.
Right.
So yeah, let me follow up on that.
Because they used to have to do that, but as you say, if the covenants are expired, then
it's no longer, public housing then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize for not having that answer right off the top of my head. I'm contacting my coworker right now. She might respond, but
So utilities are included at the rent, you're saying?
I believe the tenants pay their electric bills. And there's no gas.
And do you pay the garbage?
And I believe we pay the garbage, yes.
And you maintain the grounds?
Yes.
And if there's roofing that needs to be done or painting, that's your responsibility as the owner, right?
Any maintenance that's required is definitely our responsibility, as well as the cost of turnovers of the units.
Yeah, I guess,
And
I mean, as far as this, you know, the issue before us tonight, without knowing the answer to the question I asked, I can't, I am unable to have any opinion about the material you presented, because that really would make a difference in how I would view this. If it indeed is, you know, if indeed there is some kind of a mechanism for keeping the rent public housing realm, then I would have a much different view of your rising water rates than if it's just, you know, market rate housing.
so there are income restrictions. I just heard back from my coworker via email. There are income restrictions on the site. So it is affordable housing.
Know what the income restrictions are?
I don't have those off the top of my head. I can provide those to the council at a future date.
And
If I
how
could
are they implemented? Is it through a covenant, or is it just that, can you decide that, okay, we're gonna have, you know what I mean? How does it happen?
I
If
understand
it's-
what your question is. If I could just expand a little bit on and be a little more forthright about our financial situation, it's very dire. And I'm not overstating that when I say that the amount of income that we bring in, the revenue that we bring in from rent, minus this water bill, minus the insurance that we must pay on the property that has almost doubled over the last 5 years, minus property management, we have $0 left. So every year we're breaking even, if not losing money. And that just is not sustainable long term. And so that's part of the reason to come to the council is to speak on this water bill. But more so, we also want to introduce the fact that these are 36 units that are in danger of frankly being lost due to the financial straits of the property. And I know some of those items are not the council's fault. So that's why I was trying to bring the one item that I'm aware of that is, you know, under the guise of the council's decision.
Can you also provide us with income statements that reflect those kinds of concerns?
I'm not sure that we're comfortable at the moment to open up our books in that regard, but I'd have to talk to the executive director, Dan Brown, to speak to that.
What about just a budget? I mean, you don't have to open your books, but how about just providing us with information about, you know, what you're bringing in versus what's going out?
Or can I give a little water context in this? Elk Creek Terrace is our seventh largest water user.
Seventh
largest water user. So, and part of the reason that when we were the council increased the rates based on the utility study was because we have these very large capital projects, and two was based on conservation. Right, so those are really two pieces of it. And so right now, Elk Creek is not falling in, or is falling into the huge base rate plus the overage because of the usage.
Yeah, there's certainly no incentive for conservation.
Correct.
Right, because I'm just looking at, I could be reading this chart all wrong, but when I look at 10/31/2024 on, well, there's no page numbers, so I can't give you a page number. Oh, yep, there is. Page 4, in the first chart, it looks like the usage has gone up, which from the previous month and from the month before that. In fact, it's the highest usage I see on this page, and so that may have, I mean, what is that contributing to this issue? I guess I would really like to see, and I don't understand why this would be a problem, just a statement of what's coming in and what your costs are to show us that you really are, and some kind of a statement showing us that these are indeed what the mechanism is for keeping these apartments affordable. If it's not a covenant, then I'd like to know what it is. The deed restriction that was written into the original, contract? I mean, how are these, are they just staying affordable because you want them to be, or it's part of your mandate as a nonprofit? I don't know. And that's the kind of information I think we need to know in order to make a decision, and that seems very reasonable to me.
And have you always owned it from the onset? Do you know that answer?
I believe that we have, yes.
Always owned it.
Oh,
They
okay.
were the original owners.
Have you worked with the Public Works Department here in terms, you mentioned the 6-inch line, but the potential that the 6-inch line serves the fire hydrant there. And if that's the case, if another line was brought into the property, what size would that meter be?
So I have,
Oh, I'm sorry, James. So
uh,
what Karen said is that if it moved from the 6, it could move to a 4, but then you have the engineering costs to be able to do that.
The engineering costs, would that be them or would that be the city?
Would not be us.
That would be us,
Would not be us.
be us. Pay the engineering costs to reduce the size of the line. And then would we pay the engineering costs to keep 6-inch for the hydrant? Is that?
That I do not know the detail on, but I'm guessing we provide water for the district.
And if you had a smaller line, then how much would that save you in costs per year?
I believe it'd be the base rate that changes, and I believe it cuts it in half to drop from a 6-inch to a 4-inch.
Correct.
I'd
That
have
is
to
correct.
pull those values up.
Yeah.
So it would cost you, instead of 100,000 extra a year, it would be 50,000?
No, it's just the base rate that gets cut.
Yeah.
Just the
So
base rate?
any overages over that base and allowance would still cost us the same.
So it would save them roughly,
About 10,000,
would it be about 14,000 a year
15,000.
ish?
Okay.
I'd like to point out on the spreadsheet that I provided that this is actually from the resolution documents, that they demonstrate the price increase. And if you look at the spreadsheet that I provided in the yellow highlighted areas, the water base rate increase in the last 2 resolutions increased 23% and then 42%. So while there may be some increases in usage, that's directly associated with what we're being charged per gallon of water. And then you can see also that the sewer, the cost of sewage has also increased 16% and then 10%. And then the cost of storm has increased 30% and 12%. So these are not just insignificant amounts that those values have jumped on us. And as I mentioned, we are engaging in some mitigation strategies, both in behavioral as well as just physical mitigations, like I mentioned, the toilet flappers. And then hopefully we're able to change this meter out, but even that ultimately will not drop this to $50,000 a year.
I just wanted to let you know, I'm very sympathetic towards, and I if Elk Creek does have some kind of a covenant keeping rents affordable, I would be even more, I'd be really inclined to see some kind of relief. It's just that without that information, I have no idea without some kind of just something telling us what you're bringing in and what's going out.
I'd like to understand the history a little bit more.
That would be good. Yeah, like have you really owned, do you know if you've owned it since the beginning, or is that a guess? I guess I think that the information is, just isn't enough. And I think it's really reasonable what we're asking for. And to tell you the truth, I'm all for that continuing to be, if there is some mechanism in place to make sure that it continues as affordable or public housing, whatever you want to call it. Affordable housing, I guess. There's so many different words for it. But anyway, then that would be, I think that would, can't speak for other counselors, but I would assume that would make people a lot more amenable to giving you relief. But without that information, knowing that it's going to stay affordable and what mechanisms are in place to keep it affordable and what the actual budget is, it's hard to make any kind of decisions. So if you could come back really soon and give us that information, that'd be great. So we could move on something.
And are you clear with what information we need from you?
Yeah, I'm, as I mentioned, I've been emailing with my asset manager, and she says that she's going to dig up the copy of the covenants and would be able to provide that.
Great.
I know that we have the original set of plans and that the property was built for CAT. So I'm not sure the relevance of that, of who built it and when it was built, but I'm happy to provide that if that would provide you some relief. I will, as I mentioned, check in with the executive director about his comfort level of providing our budget. Like I mentioned, opening our books.
I'm not asking you to open your, I don't care who's getting paid what. I just would like to know what one number for salaries, one number for rents, what the rents are. You know what I mean? Just like a very rudimentary idea of comes in and what goes out and why you're suffering like you are.
I understand what you're asking for. And as I mentioned, I'll have to check in with the executive director and his comfort level of providing that information.
So how many other properties do you own?
In Cannon Beach, I don't believe we own any other properties.
No, I meant in your organization.
We own other properties.
Many.
I'm not sure about the relevance of that question.
We're not the only municipality that's raised our rates. And so having some knowledge of how large your organization is and where your other properties are, I think would be helpful.
We have several other properties throughout the three counties, Tillamook, Columbia, and Clatsop County.
You would be able to provide us with that information?
Again, respectfully, I don't understand the relevance of that question.
So maybe you can discuss that with your executive director?
Well, if you could just help me understand what the relevance of a property in St. Helens has to do with the property in Cannon Beach.
I think basically what she's asking is, as she said earlier, our rates are different than St. Helens rates, which actually our rates I know are lower than St. Helens rates. So how is the impact How are the similar impacts? Right? So that's what the question I believe that Mayor Knopp is asking. And so I think there is some relevance if they're looking at it in the whole context of how is it just on the council to decide that this is how they get relief as opposed to you doing something with the rent side of it? I guess, I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of.
Good, thank you.
We just need to see the whole picture.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, we have a portfolio of buildings. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. If you're just asking for a building count, I think we could provide that
Okay.
information. Are you
Yeah.
asking me to open my books on every property that we own
No,
and
I'm
compare the
asking,
utilities?
I'm asking
across
for
them?
your portfolio.
All right,
Where they're located, how many units? Whether they pay their water bills or you pay their water bills, just so that we have some context in helping us figure out how we're gonna help.
okay, I understand the question and I respectfully still am very confused about what the relevance of a property in Vernonia or in St. Helens has to do with the water bill in Cannon Beach.
Well, if you're confused, you can imagine how confused we are because we don't have any information. We just have you telling us that you guys are going broke and it's because of the water bill. Or a lot because of the water bill. That's all we know. That,
Yeah, I guess again, I'm sort of confused because what I'm asking the council to consider is the matter that they can control.
we don't just control it because we have to have, we can't just make decisions without any information. We can't just decide, oh, well, we're going to do this. I mean, we deliberate and we think about things and we want information so we can make a fair decision that doesn't impact our water resiliency projects, for example, which is one of the main reasons our bills have gone up so much. We say capital projects, we're not talking about the city hall and the police station. We're talking about the water resiliency project, which is water related. And those costs are large. And that was one of the reasons that the water rates went up. So if you want relief from those, you have to have something more than just you saying, I want relief because it's too expensive. We need to be shown why it's too expensive, what's going on, how it relates to other jurisdictions. So we can make an informed, intelligent decision on how we can help you. And I don't understand why you're confused.
I can get together with my executive director and ask him what information he's comfortable providing this council regarding our budget.
Yeah, maybe the executive director might want to come in and talk to us, you think?
Well, I asked him about that. He had some previous obligations tonight.
No, in the future.
Yeah, on a date when he can make it or she. I don't know who it is, but
Dan Brown is the executive.
Dan Brown, right. Okay, so on a date that Dan Brown can be here, and then I'm sure Dan Brown can answer a lot of questions for us and clear a lot of our confusion up.
And do you know the history of this property?
In what regard?
Was this the Cannon Beach property?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Couldn't hear
He
you.
didn't hear
you.
Couldn't hear you.
Was this Cannon Beach property that was provided to you or someone to provide affordable housing? Does anybody know the history of this?
I should.
That's what,
I remember when it was started, community, my recollection is that there were accommodations made in order for this, to get get built, but I don't want to,
Yeah, so there were some original covenants that have expired and maybe there's still some existing covenants.
We don't know.
well, I certainly think that's, something we can research. Those are
Right.
all
Records, yeah.
public records.
I guess
We'll get our-
I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna research that. So I don't know if it's something that they can provide. But that's information that I
Be
need.
able to provide.
I'm sure they can provide it.
Discussed in city council meetings. There's minutes. Seen them in some of our past packets.
I want to say doing some research once before on a different topic, something similar, that I came across this where they did come to council to get, make payment arrangements on SDC charges for when they built the complex. And so I think I saw some history on that once before, looking through old stuff. So I will look around, and it was built in 1994. And on the sales history on Clatsop County, there's no sales history. So it's been.
Was it government subsidized?
That doesn't. seem on
I
that.
think it was federally subsidized
Was it federally subsidized?
at one time. That's my impression. I've always,
Yeah, but I want to know.
I don't-
for sure. That's what I
the
thought
problem.
too, but I just thought it. I mean, I had nothing to back it up.
Yeah.
So I want some concrete information.
Yeah, this is truly affordable housing and it's going to continue to be affordable housing.
Right. We have,
Certainly want to look at some kind of relief.
right, but we don't know that.
So the property type for the county is listed as real property, multifamily, low income housing.
With the county.
But I'll hold the history that from 94 through old minutes,
Okay.
because it's either that or
Great.
it's current minutes, so this will be more.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah. So we'll, answers and we'll do our research and, try to get you and the executive director to attend one of our meetings
has there
in
been,
the near future.
has there been a written request for relief or has this all been verbal?
I brought this to I brought this to the council a couple of weeks ago as an item of concern.
Right.
And verbal.
But you appeared during public testimony at the beginning of the meeting. But I mean, has there been a written request for relief?
There has not yet, no.
So it's not really a formal request yet for relief.
Discussion and research.
In the meantime, the city staff is working with them to try to find ways for them to reduce the bill.
But as Gary said, if it truly is affordable housing and it's going to remain affordable housing, and there's some legal mechanism to keep it affordable housing, that would make us much more amenable to providing relief. I think that's a really basic question.
When you say that it could be lost, how do you mean that? Do you mean it that the complex might be sold or higher income people might be allowed to be in there? Or how do you mean by lost? What do you mean by lost?
Well, what I mean by that is that the property is approaching insolvency. And there's a lot of repair work that needs to be done on it, among other things. And once we figure out how to control this budget, it's going to be lost. I don't know what would happen to the property at that point. But it's in dire straits. So I'm approaching the council waving the white flag in essence that I'd like to retain the property as affordable housing for the city of Cannon Beach. And community action team, our budgets don't allow us to just pour money into a property in that way. So
Sounds like we have the same goals then, to keep affordable housing in Cannon Beach. So
Yes.
let's let's get this information and see what we can do for you.
I appreciate that sentiment, and I'd like to echo that I would like to retain this as affordable housing for the city of Cannon Beach. I know that a lot of people rely on it that work in, downtown, work in hotels. And that's our goal, to retain the housing. So I will do my research and look to send it to the council. I don't know if it's prudent to bring this back to the council as an agenda item, or if we can have a sidebar conversation about this with anybody, or what makes the
It
most sense.
definitely needs.
It's an agenda item. It
Okay.
has-
February 11th now.
Sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and could you see if maybe your executive director could attend on Zoom on February 11th?
Ms. Kim, February 11th is the next available agenda.
We need to have a work session in January. I wouldn't be able to probably.
Right, but I think we're gonna need to wait till February. Brandon, did you?
Yes, I mean, I'm very appreciative of your ask. I just think, this doesn't seem like something that's happened with the water rate. The financial, position of your organization seems, if it's that dire, that this has been going on for a while. And I'm just wondering what would happen if we were able to offer relief for the water rates, which I suppose is doable if we were to use some of the construction excise tax as an offset, because we can't just reduce someone's water rates. We need to recoup those revenues. But it still sounds to me like organization just is undercapitalized.
I think maybe what we'll see, if we dig into some historic budgets, is what our allowable rent increases are, versus things like the increased costs of insurance, the increased cost of property management, and, as I've identified, the increased cost of water on the site. So before February 11th, I'd also like to provide this council with news of some of the successes of our mitigation efforts. We'll be working with the the Public Works Department to get this Eye on Water put in place, as well as to continue to apply some of the other mitigation efforts that we already have started. So hopefully that will show as well by then. There'll be some results there. I'll also gather the requested information and look to
Great.
catch up on February 11th.
That's great.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thanks, Tim.
I appreciate the time of the council. Thank you very much.
I did find, just looking on some general area, back in 1993, they did come to council with this project, with the community action team, we came to the council with this project.
1992?
1992, May 5th, 1992 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Airbnb collection agreement.
It's me again.
Oh, boy. Why you were still sitting there.
Yes, so council, the November 5th council meeting, Tim Ramey, local citizen, brought forward the recommendation to revisit the agreement with Airbnb for the reason of PRT tax collections. Council had previously visited this topic and voted no on entering the agreement in January of 2018, so roughly 7 years ago. I've included in the packet the attachments to the staff report. I believe Mr. Ramey's initial email. And I've had discussions with Mr. Ramey, and they've been very productive. We come at this a little differently, I think. But one of the what my recommendation is to, with regards to Mr. Ramey's, idea is we have not done a review / audit of our taxpayers since December of 20. So in 4 years, for almost, a little over 4 years. So we have not gone out, done a sampling and looked at the overall compliance rates, et cetera, with regards to that. So my recommendation right now is I have engaged Eisler and Company. They are going to start those in beginning of the year. We'll get that information back. We'll have a pretty good idea of the overall compliance, and then we'll look at kind of the entire program as a whole, as opposed to trying to do the one-off on the Airbnb agreement right now. So that's my recommendation. I've explained that to Mr. Ramey also. And I believe he sent an email out to you where I've agreed to disagree, but he believes that I'm being prudent. So that's what I will leave with the council.
And is it normal to wait that long to do an audit?
Typically, so from my understanding, when I went back, it takes a little time, but we'll do it in the beginning of 25. So that'll be in the next few months. And when they, apparently when it happened the last time, it was roughly, I believe, in the fall. So it would have been kind of during this time period. Well, most of the recipients or most of the people who are paying the tax are a calendar year end. So having it at this time period was not what they were really looking for. So we will look to do it in the beginning here, and then we'll go forward from there. Now, it is unusual that it's been so long since we did the last ones, right? It should be kind of an ongoing program where we just sample a bunch and then just see if compliance is where it is. So
I thought that's what they did. I thought that's what you were doing all along, because as I understand it, when they pay property tax, or when they pay the fees, that they have to turn in a calendar as well.
correct. That is also true. Similar though with your income taxes. What I am looking for is you are reporting to me. So sometimes I have to check to make sure that what you're reporting to me is actually what's being reported.
So how does that differ from an audit, the overall audit?
From our audit?
Yeah.
So our audit is looking at a different level of materiality, right? So our audit looks at really, are the books properly stated? Are the assets correct? That sort of thing. Is there a material issue with regards to the statement? With regards to this, with regards to TRT, it's more of a compliance issue. Are people complying with the intention of the law? That's basically what it is.
Okay.
So that's all the mechanism is. And we try to make it as unobtrusive as possible, et cetera, but yes.
You go out and meet with each?
The Eisler and Company does.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll send letters to them, et cetera. Yeah. And then again, once we kind of get this data, we'll have a pretty good idea. Because from our standpoint right now, really once a quarter, we get the stuff in. We are not having an administrative issue in our regard that we are seeing. I have one person who does this and we do it every quarter. So what are the overall impacts? If the impacts aren't material, then, and everybody's basically complying, then I'm not quite sure why we would recommend any big changes. But if that's not, if administratively we could see some savings, or from a compliance effort on the payers, then I believe we would move forward on that. So, but I don't have that information yet.
And as I understood it from the last discussion and 7 years ago, Airbnb was not interested in supplying any information to us.
That is also correct.
So have they changed their mind?
Not to my understanding. I've not reached back out to Airbnb, but I can only imagine that agreement has not changed that much. That would benefit the city as opposed to Airbnb.
So what makes Mr. Ramey so sure that Airbnb is going to give us that information?
I don't believe he believes they will. I believe what Mr. Ramey, and he said in his response email to you, is that he believes that Airbnb will just send the monies, and then we'll be able to do an analysis on that if we're in the collection area. I'm not sure how true that is. Again, I know he's got an opinion, I have an opinion. So I'm not sure how true that is. I don't have a lot of data yet, so I would like some data to be able to say, yes, that is correct. So
So even if we went through this without before the audit, we still wouldn't know whether or not we would be able to get the information we want.
I believe so. I mean, we could start reach out to Airbnb again. There's a sample agreement, I believe, in the packet. And, you know, I'm sure in 7 years, it's probably been tightened down even more. But yeah, and your ability to actually audit those, facility, I believe you can only go in for a review actually once every 4 years. So you're kind of trusting Airbnb is my understanding. So
the current practice with Airbnb is that they collect the tax from the person staying, and then they remit that tax back to the property owner who then has.
Who pays us?
Individually.
Yep. Who it pays individually, correct.
And
there is a little disparity between our understanding of what should be taxed and what Airbnb would say should be taxed. It's not a huge difference, but from what was happening in 18, it was a little different.
And this proposal from 2018 would skip that step, and Airbnb would just write the city one check?
Yes, that is correct, I believe. Then they would just distribute once a quarter, they would distribute the taxes to us.
And is the proposal that we would actually receive both? Or it's one or the other?
If we would receive, you mean receive the individual?
Receive information from the property?
I believe we would still have to receive information from the property.
Okay.
Because it could also be VRBO, they could be in a local property management, they could be, so.
Okay.
So we're trusting our Airbnb to be correct.
That is my belief right now, is if we were to go into this agreement, essentially, there's no way for us to back verify, essentially. So at this point in time, again, I have not into this. I've not got into additional discussions with Airbnb. Maybe they got looser. I'm guessing no. So.
The two of you that looked at this, was that the major issue? Do you recall?
I think Lori was very concerned about, Lori was trying to get the information and Airbnb basically said, no, giving you anything. And, yeah, and I think I can't remember the entire discussion, but that was basically it. They weren't going to give us any information. I'm just kind of surprised that Tim thinks that they're going to be so forthcoming now.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows something.
Exactly. He's, and like I said, we've had discussions, and so again, we are kind of currently agreeing to disagree. I did promise him that I was working on it. And once we, get the more information, then we will, I'll make a presentation and say if we should not. There are an overall compliance program.
Because we'd be able to see one and the other and.
So I think it's just because right now, I think from an administrative standpoint on the STR user, STR owner, right? You're getting the money from Airbnb, then you're sending us the return. So maybe that's more likely what his angle is, or his, where it's more of an easy flow. You just get the check from Airbnb, we record the check and the total, and there we go from there. It's not quite the way we do it, so I'm not sold yet.
And I think he's saying that if we get a check directly from Airbnb, then we can determine whether or not getting more taxes than we might otherwise get if we did it individually.
That is also,
There might be some on Airbnb that hasn't registered with the city.
I believe he also believes that. That is correct. I believe that is correct.
Okay. But you guys get to figure that out.
And anything would be going back to Airbnb and talking about another kind of agreement.
Yes, correct.
Good luck with that.
I'm sure they're becoming much more flexible in 7 years.
We don't care. We don't have to. Just before you leave, this is on the topic right before.
Yep.
I just found online, Community Action Team St. Helens, their whole budget's right online.
Mhm.
How much they pay their, how much they pay employees, how much they're, it's all online, at least for St. Helens. I haven't looked at, I'm not going to look at it right now, but so there's a lot of information about Community Action Team online, and I know it's the same one because it has Dan Brown listed.
Right.
And they are showing their budget online. So obviously,
I would guess that they're doing it in total, what they're probably.
I don't care how much each individual gets. Yeah.
He's probably just talking about this individual property. I think part of the issue too is, right, if the council were to decide in that regard to make some kind of decision and say, this is, an agreement, we'll reduce the rate, whatever that is. I mean, there also is the conservation side of it. There has to be some kind of conservation agreement where if they hit certain things, they would have, because they really.
If you look at St. Helens, it says they have quite a few assets financially. So I'm not really sure if that is just St. Helens or if it's the whole organization.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a whole lot more information that is available and that he can bring, that his boss to bring. So.
Okay, so back to Airbnb. Any other questions? We'll wait for the audit results and.
Yep. And then I will come back with a recommendation, et cetera.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Cannon Beach Elementary Rejuvenation Project general discussion. Bruce?
Yes, ma'am. Advisory measure was placed on the November 5th, 2024 ballot with the question, Cannon Beach financed the cost of transforming the former elementary school building into a tourism-related facility/community center. Under additional information, the election results have been certified with 589 votes cast for no and 399 votes for yes. General discussion regarding the project and the next step. This is also scheduled for your retreat.
Right. Who would like to start this discussion?
If you read what was voted on, it says clearly that the majority of the people do not want to finance the cost of transforming it into a tourism-related /community center. So what is wanted? And how would it be paid for? Those are the questions.
It seems like the opposition was, it should cost less, so.
That's not what it says here. It doesn't say it should cost less. It doesn't say they did not vote that it should be done and cost less. They voted against doing it. That's what my concern is. It doesn't say, well, we want something smaller or we want something less.
Financing 7.8.
No, read what it says here.
Would you read it again, please?
Should Cannon Beach finance the costs of transforming the former elementary school building into a tourist-related facility/community center? It says nothing about as outlined in your, budget or as proposed financially. It just says no to doing it. That's why I'm so confused here. Because
It says no to 7.8 million.
it doesn't say 7.8 million anywhere in here, Gary. It says what I just read to you. There's no numbers.
Should the
There's
city
nothing.
finance? Okay.
Should they
I guess
finance
there's
it?
no number.
So if the vote is no, we should not finance it as a tourist related facility community center. How do we, what does everybody want? What do people want? They said no. So what do they want and how do they want to pay for it? That's what I'd like to know. I'd love to hear some answers or suggestions or ideas. But if you're going to read it as it's written, there's nothing in here about the amount of money or making it smaller or anything. So I don't know how to get around that. It says no. So, does anyone have any ideas about what we should do?
Well, not necessarily about what we should do, but what we can do,
Right.
which is to put up the public process all over again. I mean, I think it's fairly clear that everyone here on the council has made their opinions known. But clearly the vote ended the way it did.
Right.
And people are asking, in my opinion, for some type of renegotiation of the project. And I don't see any other way to do that other than to seek public involvement and basically start over.
Right. And I don't see if the majority voted no for a tourism-related facility / community center. And they did vote no for that, not for the particular one, just for that period.
Sure.
I don't see, I mean, I want to know what's the idea here? What do people want? And I guess you're right. The only way to do that.
Well, we have a ballot measure coming up in May, and if that actually passes, which would, cause many more problems than this, but anything would have to go to the ballot, and there would be another vote. So.
Yeah, but the problems that would cause are so much deeper than just this, yeah. I think we'd be the only city or town in the state of Oregon to do that. As far as I know, I looked it up, I couldn't find any others jurisdictions, and the League of Oregon Cities would be coming out against it and everything, but that's just a whole different thing. I just want to know about this project right now, because that's what we're discussing, so.
We need some kind of legal opinion on this.
On what?
On,
what we could do
yeah.
in light of the vote on that particular issue. With that language.
You're right, it just sounds like we can't do a facility there.
Unless it was a community center. Or just a tourist facility, one or the other, because it says
Unless there's another-
tourist / community. Yeah, it says tourist / community. So that's what has been voted down. If it was just a tourist center or just a community center, not a tourist / community, then maybe, I don't know. But I mean, I'm reading this language and I'm just like, whoa, I just makes me question whether people really knew what they were voting down, because they might have been not wanted that particular project, but this forecloses any tourist / community center. Written.
Isn't the term advisory?
You have to come up.
Just a quick question, Todd Lawson. Doesn't the term advisory though put it back in your court? There's such a, now we see that it might be poorly worded. Hindsight, but doesn't the term, this was an advisory vote that you came to a conclusion with with the opposition, that you'd be, instead of lawsuits and whatnot, you put it through an advisory vote. And so you all have an opinion about what you think your people want or could be discussed. So the term advisory, I think, opens up. It's not as black and white as.
Are you an attorney, Todd?
What's that?
Are you an attorney?
Who's an architect?
I play one on TV often, but I'm an, so I get involved with advisory measures, advisory codes.
Okay, but I understand, Bruce, and you can tell me if this is true, that we made an agreement to abide by this, what was here. That was part of the deal, part of our negotiations with the group that brought the lawsuit is that whatever the outcome of this vote was, is that we would abide by it. So that would make it more than just an advisory. That would make it
Binding,
a binding. That's how I remember it.
because we have to keep our, the agreement. We wanted a police station and a city hall.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we have to do something with that property. We cannot let it just sit there.
Well,
No, keep putting money into having it stand.
Yeah.
well, we could take it down too. That's, I mean, I know you don't like that. I know you don't want to see that happen, but that may be what has to happen. I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm open to any ideas as long as they're legal.
Well, and we need a mechanism for paying for it.
Right,
We thought we had.
right.
Lisa, to answer your question, I'd like to talk to Ashley before we get that answer, and I can send you an email.
Okay.
But I remember her saying something that you wouldn't, if the vote, I don't know if it was the right word, passed or failed. If the vote prevailed on the question, then you could not build exactly that model again, but you could still go ahead and move forward and do something. But that was kind of her interpretation, and I would want to talk more about with her as far as, did that come from negotiations or was that her interpretation?
Well, that's not what's written here.
Understood.
Yeah, so if that is really the intent, then that measure shouldn't have been worded that way.
Right.
Yeah, so I would really like to hear from
Find out.
Ashley.
Is
Yeah,
that what I can get?
Jen?
Do I need to go to the?
sure.
Jan Siebert Warman, PO Box 778. I just wanted to say, when I remember voting, there was another paper with our ballot that went into a more detailed explanation. Does anybody have that tonight?
I
That we
have
could read.
explanatory statement.
Would you read that as well? Because it goes together with what we voted on and it's part of the vote.
No, it's not.
It's part-
Explanation of this is what we voted on. Jan, I'm sorry. That's not how it works. Just the explanation underneath could be completely wrong even, but this is the wording of what people voted on.
Could we at least hear what the explanation said?
Sure.
Because that's what, I mean, when I get something like that and I'm going to vote on something, I feel like that's important to read that. And it must have some sort of meaning or we wouldn't be getting it when we get our ballot. So could we at least hear it, what it said?
I pulled up, I could read it.
Sure.
Okay, so the caption of this was advisory vote on financing improvements to former elementary school building. And then the question, as Lisa read, should Cannon Beach finance the cost of transforming the former elementary school building into a tourism-related facility / community center? And the summary is, the city of Cannon Beach purchased the former elementary school in 2020. The city desires to redevelop the school into a tourism-related facility and a space for community-related events. Primary planned activities at the redeveloped building would include heritage tourism, gymnasium activities, meeting and event space for tourists and residents, space for the Haystack Rock Awareness Program, and art venues. The city has designated most of the proposed improvements, designed most of the proposed improvements and now needs approximately $7.8 million to complete construction. The city desires to finance these costs, which are intended to be paid back using proceeds from transient lodging tax paid by tourists, although the city would pledge its full faith and credit for the debt. Before approving the finance, the council desires to receive voter input. This measure is an advisory measure. If approved, it would inform the council that the voters desire to move forward with financing the school building redevelopment. A yes vote would advise the city to issue financing, and a no vote would advise the city not to issue the financing.
There you go. That's what people read. I mean, I would assume many people read that. And that talks about more detailed nuances of this vote. So
I understand that, but after, when someone runs as a candidate, they can put a candidate statement that is saying anything they want, but it's up, this is, I'm saying that this is, I'm just reading the language here. And that's what's got me concerned. And to tell you the truth, I thought sort of the way you were thinking before, until I actually went back and read language in light of the fact that it failed. And it made me very concerned.
Well, let's get another legal opinion on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Deanna, did you want to say something?
I'd like to hear from Ashley. She's gonna know.
Hammond, PO Box 942. I believe that the spirit of that, and I think that this is what I assumed we all believed, the spirit of that initiative was for the dollar amount. That is what the spirit of it was supposed to be. And I think that I said this before, but I truly honestly believe that if you can get, and maybe this is Hope Springs Eternal, because I think the project should go forward at a lesser dollar amount, and we were given those options. But if you could get a group of open-minded people together, a diverse group, to make some decisions with information that we already have, and put that back to the people in the form of a vote, and everybody agrees, it'll pass.
Have another election?
There's an election in May anyway.
Well,
It's not that long. It's not, but it's easier than going through all kinds of community involvement again. Then you're gonna get the whole community involved. You can get the whole community involved in that way. And I think that if everybody is behind it, then, and like I said, Hope Springs Eternal, but there's a lot of legwork, and I think Brandon, you said this the other day.
You'll get your chance.
I know, I know, but you did, we've done a lot of legwork, and so I just,
The spirit doesn't matter to me. What the spirit of it, what matters to me is the language in the thing that was voted on.
and that's completely fair.
And that's why I would like to hear from Ashley, number one, if we did have that kind of agreement that I recall.
Mhm.
Number one, that would make a big difference. And number two is how much the spirit of something affects the actual language that you vote on. Because in my understanding, it doesn't matter what the spirit
If
is.
you did go to even if you did have to go to another vote, you wouldn't be able to do it in May because you're going to have to do some redesigning and really looking at this whole thing to, if you're going to be able to reduce costs at all, you're going to have another type of design or another thought process and
Right.
community involvement.
And how,
To have your election information in by March,
right.
to the May ballots.
And
do this in 2 months.
if, let's just say our new national leader imposes tariffs, then the building supplies are going to go way, way up in cost. And that would make the cost of something like this even more huge than it already, huger. So that's why I think that there's going to have to be a lot of hard thinking that goes into this, and not just spirit and wishful thinking, but reality. And that's what I want to
How
say.
much less than 7.8?
We have a,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I
In the
don't know,
spirit.
but come on up.
That's Mr. Tulip.
Greg Tulip, Post Office Box 10.
I recognize the voice
Sure.
from Coffee with Counselor.
I have more of a question.
Okay.
Since I moved here in 2022 is when we built, and I think that's the time this school was built or was purchased. What was the original intent of that? Was it always supposed to be a tourist, community building, or did it grow and morph into this? I mean, how did we get, I'm trying to understand from my own perspective, how do we get from buying this building? I've read your facts that you put in the paper, Lisa, so I get the dollar amounts and the progressions. I did read all of that. So what was the original intent? Were we always planning this? Did it just grow? We got the tribes involved for their, celebrate their cultural heritage and got them, part of this team? Was that always the intent? So I guess from my own understanding, as you move forward, I'd like to know how we got here, what the original intent of the purchase was.
It's actually spelled out in the city's comprehensive plan. The use of the property is spelled out in the city's comprehensive plan.
Nancy and Brandon were actually part of the council when that was purchased, right?
And then it went through a 4-year public process that was trying to fill those plans. And yes, the Clatsop Nehalem tribe was involved every step of the way.
Well, it was originally purchased with tourism funds that came from the county. And because it was purchased with tourism funds, it has to follow state requirements to become, to finance. You can only spend tourism funds on tourism related facilities. We went through a process.
Substantial purpose of
Yeah.
serving tourists or accommodating
Right,
tourists.
and we did do a whole public process, a whole survey on what people wanted, and I remember several different meetings that we had, plus workshops and so forth. And it came out to, they wanted a community center, they wanted a place that they could educate, have classes. They wanted a gymnasium where people could play, and with place where we could have concerts, we could have meeting gatherings and so forth. And because it's of tourism, is paid for with tourism dollars, we have to look at it in terms of how tourists can be involved in it as well. And that's basically what we had 4 years and 70 meetings worth of discussion on this. And the community was involved. And this is where we are today.
You just kept wanting more and more and more and more, and price kept going up and up and up, and now we got.
No, the length of time
No.
had a lot to do with the price escalation.
And the condition of the building in the first place.
Yeah.
The condition of the building is pretty dire. And to bring it to code, I mean, it's a 60, 70-year-old building. So to bring it to the current code, to make all the repairs that it needs, to do the plumbing and the electricity and all the things. It's been closed since 2013. So, and nothing's been done to it. Nothing had been done to it, I should say, before we purchased it. So, and as Barb says, as the years went on, the prices went up. So.
We got 1.5 million roughly left, do something with the building, is that where we're at?
Bruce can talk to that.
Yeah, I believe there's 1.5 million left, but part of the discussion and trying to develop things.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, no, we're trying to develop a baseline because it complicates things. It was a school. It's no longer going to be a school. That's a change in use. It means that you've got to bring both buildings totally up to current code for assembly, which is different than what school was back, when they first did it. So there's a lot of costs that have to be, there's a lot of money has to be put in just to make it come up to code before you do any improvements that would result in, enhancement of the use of the structure.
Spend roughly 1.5, bring it up to code, then you're still back to having to go out for more funds to enhance it.
1.5 would not bring it up to code.
It's more than that.
We spent the 1.5 and that was putting on a new roof
if you spend the additional 1.5 you have left to bring it up to code?
It won't come close.
We're still working on getting a price for what it would cost us.
Right.
I don't know how relevant that even is, but obviously we need an attorney's opinion on what the options are. Personally, I would like to not give up hope that there's a way forward on a cultural and nature center and honor the Clatsop Nehalem people on the site of their traditional village. I hope that some facility can be built rather than just a park. And I would hope that there's consensus on that among our community. I do wonder how much of a premium we're paying to save two old buildings that have to be retrofitted. They're in a horrible position practically on Beaver Street, making parking an issue not to solve. But, you know, it's a question for CETA or the construction people. How much of a premium are we paying to save those two buildings? And if we had a budget of $6 million, could we build something that's much more a reasonable size, but actually gives us that cultural and nature center, gives us classrooms for community events?
Like the one you visited where the pictures you sent us, that one.
Yeah, I visited the Dungeness River Nature Center in Sequim, Washington, and it's obviously a much smaller facility. It doesn't have a gymnasium with it, you know, an ancient gymnasium. And I don't recall the cost of building that right off the bat, but and I don't know if it's jumping the gun to even start talking about those kinds of things. It's maybe we need the attorney's opinion first, but I would kind of like to hear how much of a premium we're paying to save those buildings and what kind of options there might be for something less than in a more ideal spot on that property. Should we listen to Ashley first and then start asking those questions?
Yeah.
I would say so. And remember too, that you talk about a piece of property with a lot of artifacts. And that was why we made the decision early on, save the buildings.
Well, I have talked to Todd. I've talked to Doug Doer, and I don't think those are insurmountable things. Obviously, yes, archaeology is important. There'd have to be archaeological monitors. But the site, you know, so far, not a lot has been found there. You know, I'd like a solid opinion from the tribe. I don't know if there are federal, state things that we would have to also be aware of, but I'd certainly like the tribe to weigh in on, you know, what their concerns might be, or are they more interested in having something that will honor the site of their village, and they don't really feel like it's going to, you know, be a danger to whatever artifacts might be there. I think those are all important questions.
That there are state and federal regulations about that, because I did that for a while as a living. When, you know, archaeological sites for environmental impact statements. And it was regulated by, not by, you know, it was regulated by the state in Washington where I did it.
I got the impression that that's not out of the question on this site.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And I don't know. Todd, do you have any insight?
Again, I'm Todd Lawson, Seattle. So, the person to talk to is Doug Doer, and I'm having lunch with him tomorrow. And all the stuff, the archaeological things can be worked around at a lot of expense and it takes more time. But I hope that doesn't lead to a parking lot.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So if you give an inch, I'm gonna give an inch, do we give 3 miles? You know, the energies have been swaying things quite predominantly, and I really hate to see we digress into, well, we need 12 parking spots, and so that's bad for the tribe, bad for the community, bad for the site. There's 12 parking spots isn't gonna fix the parking situation. And sort of go back to what I said before, I'd actually researched and I just dug up again what I found about the vote was an advisory vote. And my first thing was, well, what does that mean? Right? I wasn't sure exactly. And I found the Oregon Voters Guide, Urban League thing, and they gave advisory points and all and definitions and all of this. And the reason I said before that was up for interpretation because it truly is advisory and non-binding. You might have got it on the ballot through negotiations, but that's not on the ballot either. Just like, unfortunately, I believe the essence of what Jan was saying is really what people voted on. But I think it's just going to take some leadership, strong leadership, and some commitment to, and you guys are going to have to vote it and take it. And if maybe get voted out of office because of it, I don't know. But it truly is non-binding advisory, and time is of the essence. Wait another 2 years, and that's another $40,000.
It might change it a little bit that it even appeared on the ballot because of a negotiated settlement where we made an agreement. So that.
Wow, just layers upon.
Yeah, it is layered. I think that's why we need the attorney's opinion.
Then in 2 weeks, isn't there two new seats up here?
The last meeting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
We got to keep them here till midnight.
okay.
Should we make a decision tonight then?
Well, and again, the fact that you guys are discussing it is great. I think it's.
Thank you for being here also.
Thank you.
We need your voice here. And again, I hope that we can find a way forward on that.
I think there is. I think,
I think so too. And when I talked to Doug, he felt confident about it too, even though my main question was about the archaeology of.
I will put in a pitch though. I love the gymnasium. I'm going to say it now and I'm going to say it again. It's a unique structure. It says Oregon as they come. And I personally think it's a great tribute to the city as much as the Northwest. Because everyone thinks it's going to be metal beams, right? They're going to walk in there and they're going to see a Kiwanis hut. But it's Oregon. You walk in there and it's a really beautiful structure.
Wood.
It's wood, like nothing else on the West Coast. Kind. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. So we should be able to get the legal opinion by our retreat dates.
Definitely.
And I think that probably needs to be our number one
On the retreat.
on the retreat topic.
Yeah, so do we want to go ahead and just say on January 9th, we will definitely talk about CBE so that way people know which day of the two.
And have Ashley present
Is that
at
our
that
first
part
day?
of the discussion?
Yeah.
Can she be, do you think she could be present for the,
If you want Ashley present, let's not commit to the 9th then, so that way she has some flexibility and we'll see.
okay,
Well, she could be on Zoom though. She could.
It depends.
She might.
Her schedule in general,
Yeah.
she may not be available in the on 10. So.
Right.
Just, I'll find out what day she's available.
because we can't really move an inch till she lets us know whether, whether that was a negotiated, part of the negotiated settlement was we abide by what is written here or what the parameters are.
So we'll get a hold of Ashley, discuss the dates with her, and then let you guys know which date she can make and approximately what time. And then when that can be announced at the January 7th meeting, so that
Right.
people know.
I'd like to bring her answer to January 7th.
Oh, you want to bring her answer to
And
January?
the answer is that you've got that information and we can have the discussion rather than have information and wait.
Okay,
Okay, I'll add it to the January 7th agenda item, and then you guys can discuss it in the retreat as well.
Okay.
great.
Okay, anything else on this topic? Okay, go to the order.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just gonna say, we have our trail party at 10 o'clock, but same location as last month. Elk Run Park, no, what's it called? The little park across from Nakus.
Okay,
Yeah. What is that called?
Les Shirley,
No,
not that way.
the little park. By the,
It's Acola Creek Park.
oh, that's right, that's it. Yeah.
Good.
10.
Looking good, by the way. It's
I
amazing.
know, we did a lot.
Yes.
First day. Okay.
I have a question. I think it was communication from you that supported what Debbie was talking about tonight with the tsunami sirens, that they're inoperative. Can we get an update on that and what the plan is? And
Yes, and I can.
I would like to really know what all of that means, and if we really, if it's not there at all, and what our plan is.
It is not there at all. And that was what I was going to bring up too, for good of the order. I'd like to see this as an agenda item very soon. The whole thing about the siren and getting that operative again. I think that is so important. And I really, what she said about how most people in the city think is operating. And when visitors come here, they think there's nothing to warn them if they have to get off the beach. I mean, it just is not, it's, you know, and I can't be a liability for that. It's just incredible, but that's beyond it. I don't care about that. I care about safety. And can we get
Is it our district responsibility at this point, or it's back to the city? It came back to the city.
Yeah, it's the city's responsibility.
Emergency management.
Emergency management, maybe we could have him here too, our new emergency management director for the discussion. And when could we put it on?
It got scheduled after coffee with the counselor yesterday.
Oh, great,
Yep.
great.
We had this
I guess
discussion.
that's where I heard.
We had this discussion.
Yeah, I didn't know we had,
No, it became-
we'd scheduled it already. Okay.
Afterwards, Bruce met with Andy yesterday afternoon
Okay,
and we went ahead and he's already putting stuff together and we plugged it in for January 14th already.
excellent. Yay. Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Mind reading.
You guys are on top of it.
Okay, anything else for good of the order?
Light refreshments afterwards.
Yep. And I would like to say publicly, thank you, Nancy and Brandon.
I would like to say that it's been quite 8 years. I mean, you know, Brandon's almost bald and great. But it's been an extremely interesting 8 years. I think we did quite a bit as a council. I think there's a lot more that we could have done and you will do as a new council. And I hope the two new members get as much out of the experience that I have gotten, and I'm sure that Brandon has gotten as well. But thank you for the council. This is one of the best councils I've ever worked with. I really enjoyed working with them. As I said, as a reporter, I've covered a lot of municipalities in my lifetime, and I've seen lots of city councils and county commissions and planning commissions and groups, and covered them all. And this is one of the best working groups I've ever seen. So I've been very proud to be a member of this city council.
Thank you.
Please don't be a stranger to city government. There's openings on committees.
Well, as I've said before, I'm going to zoom in on these council meetings and I'm going to turn my mute on and I'm going to go.
Okay,
And we're gonna find a way to continue to copy with the counselors.
We are, there's a scheduling problem, but I thought what we could do is that I can be there every month. And then the Mondays you can be there, you're there. And if not, we could rotate people in for other
Okay, you could
Mondays.
have Nancy and Brandon just come in for fun.
For fun.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay,